Here for this panel, I'm gonna let you guys introduce yourself. So also that way I don't butcher your names, right? Like this is gonna be I'm removing the responsibility, and I'm just gonna listen to your names and as well as what you do, so people can get a little bit of an idea of who you are.
Hello, thank you for having me. My name is Jose Lara. I'm with Scotiabank, specifically for international banking, technology, and transformation.
And what's that international? Where are you internationally?
I'll play along, keeping the Bad Bunny theme. I'll be quick. So it's Mexico, Peru, Chile, Colombia, Caribbean, 8 countries, Central America, 2 countries, Uruguay, Brazil, USA, UK, and Asia Pacific.
We'll be happy. Okay, thank you, Jose.
Yeah. Hi, folks. Not as global as a role. Tejbir. I lead the data and AI technology team for Bank of Montreal, both north and south for US and Canada.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Aditya Ane. So I lead AI governance at CIBC. So we risk assess all AI within CIBC and also ensure any compliance with AI-related regulations.
All right. So the first question that people really want to know about Scotia, BMO, JBC, is like, where are you today with Agentic AI? And I mean by this, like if you are only doing POCs or you're scaling, you already have things in operationalization. And also, okay, so then we'll know where you are, but probably we want to know what were the obstacles? How, like to get there, wherever you are, what are those obstacles that you face? Yeah. And I'm going to say, well, you can start.
Yeah. So right now I'm co-leading transformation client servicing, and Agentic AI is a key element for that component. What we want, and we have a clear sets of mandates. Number one, we need to simplify the technology ecosystem across IB. Number two, we have to increase.
What is IB? Translate.
We have to increase adoption of digital channels.
Okay.
And that's where Agentic AI comes into place,
okay.
Right? We are past along POCs. We are at the pilot phase, right?
Okay.
But mostly on the internal use cases. I'll let the rest to chip in, and then we can move to
the obstacles.
Yeah.
Or you didn't have obstacles? Okay. You can.
So I think if the responses are not consistent, and for everybody in the room, then I'll be very surprised, right? Like any big Canadian financial services. So very similar, right? So POC pilot phase, very internal focused. But I think one of the things that we've done is try to step back and say, okay, are we leading towards this death through 1,000 POCs? And I think when we talk about obstacles, I think for us, we saw a lot of POCs popping up across the organization. And then, so we're now sort of in the sense, okay, they're going to pilot, but are we set up for success or not? And we have some teams that have come out of it.
A little bit of a different angle I'll take. Basically, we view Agentic AI as an opportunity to re-examine our processes and adopt a process engineering mindset. So I think, as you move further away from the model layer, the problem becomes an engineering problem, less of a data science problem. So adopting sort of a systems engineering mindset and a process engineering mindset and re-examining all the existing processes within the bank and not just like one part of the process. I'm talking about the process that connects the front end, the front line to the back office, right? So how can we re-examine, revisit the entire process with agentic engineering adoption, right? So that gives us an opportunity to actually get real value from AI rather than just putting it into some random place within one particular part of the process.
All right. So anything to add in terms of the obstacles here, or?
Yeah, from the obstacles perspective, so I think from what Addy's saying, I think they're slightly ahead. One of the big obstacles is we agree with that, and we're saying, do we have the right op model? So I think op model is an obstacle for us to be able to do this at scale, to look at business processes and sort of say, okay, where can sort of agentic AI add value? And the other big one is, again, I'm hoping everybody's facing that, is are we set up from inputs and technology perspective to do that at scale? And that was an obstacle. We were not, right? Like the tech stack of these 1,000 POCs were not consistent. The way we were executing on them wasn't consistent. So I think the step back also includes how do we sort of strategize and go over this obstacle.
And to make sure that I understand, when you mean a scale, it's not a linear at scale that I have this POC and then I scale it, but it's at scale as like there is so many POCs that how I make sure that all those POCs are with a framework and we are actually thinking about adding value. So we're thinking about more horizontal, many POCs, rather than scale vertical one POC, right?
It is horizontal. And specifically, obviously, I have a biased lens because my role is more enterprise. So it is horizontal. How do we take everybody up, but in a consistent manner, right? So there's an acceleration piece to it. How can everybody move faster to value realization, but also in a consistent manner? Right? Just don't sort of develop more tech debt or cost to maintain some of these agents.
Okay.
I'll add a couple. Data readiness. It was nice to see, I was in table number 4, it was nice to see different workflow diagrams around data. Just making sure that when you start from the source, you go through raw data, and then you have to manipulate, normalize, clean it up, and then you have an end product for AI to consume. That's definitely a challenge. Another one is talent. I think all the FIs are working on making sure that we step up our internal talent, as well as leveraging and partnering up with externals as well, just to bring more people to the game and expedite results.
Okay.
Let's not forget the regulatory components.
Okay, and it's F6 because there's people from Quebec, so it's National Bank too, right? So let's not forget. Okay, so let's move to the second question. How are you governing and monitoring agentic AI to ensure decisions are transparent, auditable, and compliant?
I'll take a stab.
Yeah, I can start first. So I'm going to say the word engineering maybe 100 times because I just want to emphasize the importance of adopting an engineering mindset, firstly. And when I say engineering, I'm talking about what I was mentioning earlier, process engineering, but also just sort of the systems level thinking that comes with engineering, because with even governance, it has to be by design, right? And if you want to do governance by design, you have to kind of look at how mature you are in your MLOps, which we used to refer to for traditional machine learning, but also now LLM ops and agent ops, which is a slight variation of it. But forget the names. In the end of the day, you need to sort of look at the holistic picture of on the data context feature engineering side, which is I call stage 1. And then stage 2 is your solution development, and then stage 3 is deployment, and then on top of that you have monitoring and observability. So you got to look at the entire end-to-end of ML ops, LLM ops, agent ops, whatever ops there is, right? And try to see how you're embedding your governance within that, because that's the only way to scale and move fast. Otherwise, we'll just end up doing like the regular checkboxing, check marking. Did you do this in stage 1? Did you do this in stage 2, and so on? So governance by design is something that my team is really focused on.
We shouldn't let him go first. I have very limited things to add. So I think, again, very, very similar approach to our previous question also. So the approach to solve that obstacle 1 was also, can we break down most of these use cases, I'm using the term more vaguely, into reusable components? Like, so do we have an AI capability framework that we can say, okay, there are components that everybody can use, and then embed the governance by design in it? Because the observability, the evals, the metrics have to be built into it, right? So again, just to come up with fancy name, we've come up with a name called RIOps, Responsible AI Ops. So it's a net new capability that my team is setting up with partnering with practitioners like yourself. But the idea is that I'm calling it old, but a couple of years old, when we were focused on ML ops and LLM ops, how do we take that further and sort of embed some of the things that agents and generative use cases, because we were not really equipped to set up for non-deterministic outputs, right? So that's the approach on sort of, I'm going to steal the term, like to put an engineering mindset to it. And sort of say, okay, this needs to be relooked at. It is very difficult to scale up existing frameworks to meet those needs.
RIOps is not trademarked, right? Because I
You want to use it?
I'll use
Yeah.
TIOps. Trustworthy AI ops.
All right, as well as education, right? I sort of like head of AI where I work, because like I'm the person who built it and stuff. And as we're building this agentic AI and all these agents and all this stuff, is pretty exciting. And we know that we have to do monitoring, but between you and I, like, nobody's listening. Like, I don't think that we're doing enough. And this is so new, so like, we have to do the observability, we have to do, but, we have the fancy words like AI ops, LLM as a judge, the stuff, but what does that mean? It's like, we also need to educate ourselves and really, as we do it, we'll get the experience, and then we're like, oh, okay, like now we're doing it, and I understand the steps. But like you said, it's an engineering problem. We need to understand the engineering of it.
Yeah. There's also specific components that we've never focused on in the past. We, as in collective, right? On the AI security side, automated red teaming will become very important for AI agents, right? Model scanning, right? People are leveraging more and more open source LLMs, so you want to scan those models before you use them.
In like 30 seconds, what would be model scanning?
Model scanning, I mean, it's like a virus scan of the models, essentially, to put it bluntly, put it simply, right? Scanning any model that you get from Hugging Face, for example, and then red teaming the application before you put it to production. And by red teaming, I mean trying to break the application to give you, to produce an undesired response, right? And then you fix it. And then obviously, once the application is in production, you want to have protection around it as well, runtime. So AI security becomes extremely important, especially as we have these applications in front of the public, right? Because then that exposes the whole realm of adversarial robustness or risks. Sorry, go ahead.
And I want to add something. The monitoring is not only when launching. It's constant, because the models are evolving. So if you identify a risk, you have to even reassess, right, and recertify, so the model can keep going.
Yeah.
I think there's both components, right? The pre-deployment testing and post-deployment monitoring, I think it's critical. One of the things that I was also saying, what we've done, we came up with this sort of construct of RIOps, and we were like looking at, from a very tech lens, how do we solve for it? How do we literally operationalize it? But we've pivoted on saying, okay, we're going to stay away from going and acquiring a fancy tool which promises to do all of that, and actually see what it means in this evolving space. And can we sort of use the existing processes and improve them and enhance the technology, rather than just saying, okay, LLM as a judge, or somebody who's saying, okay, we can do evals and metrics in one box and just go acquire something. So I think we're repivoting from a technical lens as well, because the space is evolving and things are so new that it needs to be a sort of a more thought out approach, at least from our perspective.
Good. Okay. I'm going to go to another question. Get ready. So how ready is your organization, from skills to culture, to effectively adopt agentic AI, and what gaps are you actively addressing? Jose, you good?
Yeah. We started from the basics, the culture. The culture change and the change management is key, right? Obviously, we all navigated through the buzzer words and the momentum of AI. I think we already passed that. We have seen a lot of progress in what is called proof of value, right? And we just need to get to the last mile, which is going to production at scale. That's where we are right now, just in that stage. And we are learning, and that's something I really want to highlight. Everybody here is for a reason. We need to learn, and we need to fail fast, and we need to improve faster, right? And when failing, it's really important to identify also where it's safe to fail, because we are all going to fail. We just need to select the right use cases to make sure that risk is within the guardrails that we decided.
Yeah. Rita?
Skill sets, I think, need to be uplifted, across all major domains, right? Even in technology, in governance as well. Like in my team, we hired previous data scientists, somehow managed to convince them to join the governance team, right? So the value that they provide is, when we assess risk, we actually can speak about it and advise AI development teams on how they can potentially mitigate those risks from a technical perspective, right? So, making sure your governance team is staffed with engineers and data scientists, technology, they also have to uplift, ML engineering, ML ops becomes extremely important. And then overall literacy of the organization on AI is also is important because they're essentially the front line, like the first line of defense, right? Having a basic understanding of AI risks, I think everyone needs to have it across the organization. People change management, often overlooked, is probably the most important thing, right, with AI. In fact, like any significant AI project, you need to involve process engineers up front. Again, the word engineering. You need to involve change management with every major AI project up front. Like they have to work together with technology and business and your AI development teams, because otherwise you'll just give someone a tool and they don't know what to do with it, right?
Right. And like I hear a lot of components in change management, people being ready, the technical components as well. Somebody was asking me just before this session about like more about the full government process from intake, prioritization, how we decide if we're going to do all those POCs. Is it a buy? Is it a build? Is it we do it in this platform or in this other platform? Any of you want to like construct a little bit on that thought or?
I'll take a stab at it, and again, I'm hoping everybody's consistent and we're not doing something completely crazy. The idea is like there are checks and balances about. So there's a check, at least at our organization, at the input as well, right? Whether this use case meets the need for doing an agentic solution, because like any big organization, there are use cases for the sake of using the new fancy tool, right? So there's an enterprise-wide, and for those who don't know, we are a very federated organization, right? So Bank of Montreal has, I think, 13 chief data analytics officers, and they have their own sort of governance teams, their own analytical teams. From a tech perspective, we're trying to be consistent and obviously making sure everybody's sort of rowing in the same direction. So this intake of sort of saying, okay, is this from a risk lens perspective, from a use case perspective, so all use cases go through that process, right? So that's one endpoint. And then comes the second one. Then there is, once it goes through that intake or gate, you can go and try and do it however you want to do. That's where we've entered the second piece of saying, okay, can we break this down into components that already exist so that you can start using some of the foundational blocks? And hopefully, when this goes into deployment, we're also able to bring responsible AI ops into the picture. So there's two levels of funneling that are happening.
Okay, good. We have one last question before we finish, which is about the elephant in the room. And when we prepared, I noticed that this was the question everybody was running away from, right? But I'm gonna ask it anyway, and we'll see how we do, right? So, what ROI have you seen from Agentic AI so far, and how are you optimizing value going forward?
I wouldn't say there's like you won't know the ROI until 2 years, 2 years, yeah.
All right.
So I can't really answer that question.
A plus for honesty.
Yeah, and in theory, you can calculate it. In practice, it's a whole different story, right? And we saw early examples of that with the tokenization, right? You have to watch the meter. That's what they say. But I think all of us here are in a similar stage where it's hard to predict, it's hard to tell.
Okay, so what you're saying also is, besides, it's difficult to look at the let's say extra revenue or savings. It's even more difficult to know yet what is going to be the cost, because of like we have to see the tokenization as people start using it. So because as people engage more with these tools, there is a price that we set. Like yesterday, a couple of people said, like, who have gotten like a surprise bill from your from your LLM provider. So yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah, I was saying, like, at least in slightly different responses, I think attribution is a problem. At least that anything that we're doing, be it tech, like old school tech app development or agentic AI, the idea is it aligning to the priorities? Is it increasing revenue, reducing cost, or reducing the risk of operations? Like, it has to align to all three.
Yeah.
And we have a general agreement across the industry that applying AI solutions, agents, will align to one of these three and will yield results. The challenge, at least, that we are facing is, once those results are achieved, how do you attribute it that it was because of the agentic deployment and not because marketing was doing something better, or sales was doing, or ops were doing? So I think we are running into that issue, and so we're going ahead without a very robust model of value alignment. But obviously the decision goes through that lens, that do we think it'll help the organization achieve one of these three pillars?
Yeah, yeah, I think I totally agree. Like, it's like companies more and more, and banking is a good example, it gets very complex. And then when you have such a complex system that with thousands of people working for each of your institutions, doing different things to optimize the three same things, which is, profit, cost, and reducing risk, it is difficult to do the attribution. It's like we almost need like a complete new team that is just based on like building models to see who is attributed, with this. Amazon has it, like has attribution teams, because they have campaigns on email, campaigns on like when you connect on your Amazon has like the banners, the search optimization engine, like in many different places they're trying to, it's like, hey, buy this, buy this, buy this, but then they need to know which of those touch points are the one who trigger you to buy the shoes or the whatever you saw there. So it's very complex. It's very complex to understand where the value is or where it's coming from because of that complexity. So yeah, I think there's very honest, very excellent answers. You see, you have
because even
if
you say hours saved, which I don't like as a value estimate, because with hours saved, what does that mean? What have you done with those hours, right? Which goes back to then, how do you properly attribute the increased productivity? It's not easy, but yeah, we wouldn't know the true impact. I'm not just talking about banking, but in general, even consumer AI, you wouldn't know the true impact.
Yeah.
I want to add another economic value component, client experience. Yesterday we heard an NPS, right? And when you talk agentic, the idea is to get it as close to the client as possible.
Yeah,
right?
it's how they're going to feel, which also is going to be terribly difficult to measure, because also it depends as well on many components, as well as the NPS is measured in a way that is a very small sample. So yeah, like it anyway is fluctuating. So if you apply this agentic and it goes up or it goes down, like if you apply nothing, it's going to go up and down.
Anyway.
So NPS is very, very difficult to attribute because of those components. Also, like to open like everybody's eyes, I was also having a conversation outside somebody, which is the cost, the tokenization. right now, what we're living is the best moment to use agentic AI in the sense that is the cheapest moment ever is going to be. Right now, the price that we're paying is heavily subsidized by venture capitals, and then we're not paying the real price of the token. Now there's a lot of competition. They're trying to position themselves, and it's cheaper than really it is. And one example that we can think about is when Uber started. When Uber started, it was subsidized by venture capitals to get people hooked on Uber, and it was cheaper than taking a cab. Airbnb was cheaper than booking a hotel. Do the exercise right now. Go and try to book Uber versus cab, Airbnb versus hotel, and see yourself if today is cheaper still or more expensive. Now we are just using it, and automatically people is taking an Uber. It's not thinking about cabs, but it's more expensive. A lot of people go and take an Airbnb still. It's more expensive. So I think it's going to happen the same, right? Like we are seeing these prices, and we're driving really the adoption in terms of taking this, but we're going to have to be careful, and we're going to have to see in the future that it's not the real price. For this to work for us, it has to be, even if it's double the price, still good for us. We'll have to ask that question as well, because I think it's going to be important in terms of the balance sheet and the value that we're going to get. So I don't know if you have anything else.
Because the companies are trying to balance how much compute they dedicate to training, which is R&D, versus inference, which gives them money, right? It's not an easy decision to make, because if you don't spend on training, then you might not have the best models. People might go to someone else. So it's like a balancing act for them.
OpenAI is burning 240 billion next year. Burning. Like it's like, it's going down. Like
training doesn't get you money.
So
inference
it's not
does,
profit, right? So let's be careful with that. That is being paid on futures. We have 3 minutes for questions. I bet that there's a lot of people that have questions. Yeah, like I have such a predictive,
Your model is well trained.
Yeah.
All right. So the microphone for her, like there.
Hi. You had mentioned bringing engineers and data scientists with data governance people is key. Can you just talk about some aspects that should be put in place to ensure success when you bring these three very distinct and different groups together, which I think is very important to have them together?
Yeah. So my AI governance team, we have policy and compliance experts, and we have engineers and data scientists. And I think that blend has been great for us. Like, amazing value. Like, we essentially provide a service to the company in the sense that for every project, we don't just say these are the risks. We actually work with the teams to actually mitigate those risks as well. Like, how can you improve your model? How can you improve your deployment approach? It's almost like an advisory service. Sometimes I say we're a governance advisory team. That's why people don't view us as a blocker. They actually view us as an enabler, and I think that our team has a great positive image. So we, like, to be effective with governance, you also have to, we talked about this, the operating model is key, right? You have to layer the governance on the organization's AI operating model. Essentially, that dictates how business units work with each other, how business units work with technology and governance teams, right? So you're essentially governing the organization's target operating model. Say you have an AI use case that you want to get delivered. How does the business work with tech? How does the business work with the AI data science team, right? So that operating model basically is a playbook for how AI gets done within a company, and you're governing that. So I like to say we brought engineering to governance, and it's been working amazing so far.
All right, we have 1 more minute for one more question.
So I have a question for the senior director at CIBC. You mentioned you guys started using Hugging Face, which is great. Kudos for that. What do you guys do for compliance to determine this model is the correct model or it's fitting with CIBC as example in terms of like
Yeah, so
There's
that's
a lot
where,
of- yeah.
good question. That's where the operating model is important. I can spend an hour just talking about the importance of an operating model, but we don't want model selection decisions to be made by people that don't understand AI, right? So the operating model actually dictates that data scientists must make the model selection decision. It's not some random application developer in tech that has access to an API that feels empowered that they can just call that and then put it in an application, right? So all these kind of requirements are baked into the operating model which we govern.
Amen.
Just to follow up for that, our CIBC or CIBC today is ready for internal modeling and training. Do you guys have a GPU processes in place for deployment and for training?
I would say less on like you're talking about LLMs, right? Not traditional machine learning.
Okay, so LM mostly.
Yeah,
I'm
like-
talking about like no LMs, internal models, like you build your own
traditional
model.
machine learning with all banks. I mean, we've been doing it for like 25, 30 years in risk and fraud, right? But LLMs, I would say it's mostly around fine tuning. It wouldn't be on training. I mean, there might be smaller ones, but yeah.
All right, so we are at 0. It was great, guys. It was very good conversation, fun. People liked it. Yeah, let's do a round of applause.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.